The photograph that we're looking at here reflects a scene from Grodno in July of 1941. The photograph depicts three figures on a street at a time when German forces were occupying the city. One is of a German police battalion member who is gripping two Jewish women by the hair and knocking their heads together for not wearing the armband with the Star of David. And we only know this because the photograph was described by the policeman who is photographed in a letter home to his wife, where he describes the event to her and why he is carrying out that action. Josef Bauer is pictured in the photograph. He was a member of Police Battalion 131, which was based out of Nuremberg. And to his person, we know that he was a middle-aged father. He had a wife. In private life, he had been a clerk. And he finds himself stationed with a reserve police battalion on the Eastern Front. He's engaged in the invasion of the Soviet Union, and he's coming behind other lines of the war. And when we first encountered this photograph, we found it on the page of an album that simply identified as Grodno, Russian Poland, between the dates of June and July of 1941. Other photographs on the album are easier to read. They show Jewish men, women, and children with armbands, a destitute civilian on the street, and the interior of a church. We were able to interpret this photograph where you see two women sort of hunched over and very close together, physically entangled, as a scene where Josef Bauer is enforcing German occupation policy, which required Jewish residents of Grodno to be identified with an armband with the Star of David. The photograph was included in a letter to Bauer's wife, Agnes, from, I believe, July 24th, 1941. He describes the scene that he was sending this to her, and it's almost confessional because he's identifying himself in the action that he's carrying out. Someone has deliberately taken this photograph of him. We don't know who, perhaps another man from his unit. And what's rather notable is that the Josef Bauer papers include two-way correspondence, letters that Josef wrote home from the front and Agnes's replies. So we also know how Agnes responded to receiving that photograph. And when she responds to Josef, she notes that he doesn't treat those two, quote, Jew girls very gently, but she references the scenes that she has seen in German newsreels of Jews on the front. And though she notes he doesn't treat them gently, she comments that one can be quite enraged about the beasts. What's interesting is that Agnes's letters also include references to popular propaganda. And this includes sort of cinematic films that she was going to see with her friends and loved ones. They discuss Josef's photography quite frequently because Agnes is also responsible for acquiring negative film that she can provide to him so he can take these photographs. And it's a joint effort. At one point, they refer to them as our photographs. So they're engaged in this exchange of information about what the war looks like with one another, with their friends and their family. So you see the many ways in which people's opinions were being formed about Jewish people and the consequences for Jewish communities that were targeted in the German War of Annihilation. With Josef, we don't know the full range of his actions. He speaks of raids. He speaks of the targeting of Jews and others, not only by his unit, but also by the SS and sort of the collaborative work that is happening between those forces. It's interesting to contrast that wartime photography with some of the photographs that we have of him in private life. So when he's out of uniform, there's this photograph where he and Agnes and their 2-year-old son are just walking through their hometown on a bicycle. So it's a very normal scene of daily life, but we don't know the full range of his own activity. And to contrast that into this sort of visual confession of an act, it raises certain questions, because he also notes that there's much more that is happening that he cannot photograph and that he cannot describe. So we're on the fringes of a larger story with that one photograph.